So, Dark Falls. This was my first attempt at a 3v1 boss, and I actually thought I had a really novel concept for it. Steal the opponent's soul, so when the opponent hits you, it'll cause damage to the opponent whose soul you stole. And that, I think, is actually a great concept for a boss that needs to be reused again. The problem is the execution, because everything past the forward throw is terrible. I mean, he's just making, instant death clouds, which are admittedly from the game. I was just spamming attacks from the game and making them generically as overpowered as possible to give him just projectile spam. And it just ends up ridiculously lockdown-ish.
For those of you who don't have the set in front of you, the forward throw is the third move in the moveset.
Yeah, it's the first three moves are great, and then it's all downhill from there. And it's just there's so much problematic stuff here. Like, you can use a down smash to create a black hole, then put the opponent. Then actually, if you get then you have to hit the opponent with a special down smash to connect you somehow. I don't know my logic on that move, but you drain damage equal to the amount of damage you deal to them, so you just get all that health back. Just put them in the portal, make the thing that rains powerful projectiles from the sky over the portal, and then just watch if they take 200% and you become invulnerable. Stuff like that is actually pretty common in this set. It's disgustingly overpowered.
The thing that I hated about this set is the disparity between the very delicate balance of soul stealing and team play versus that concept, and then you just have one-hit KO mists and stuff. Like, it just starts off so delicate and refined, and then it just becomes, the most obvious flowchart ever.
Yeah, this is very flowcharty, and I actually really hate flowcharts. I thought MYM that would be a particular pet peeve of mine. It's just awkward to have a set in my history, aside from Vol Ops. I do think Vol Ops is heavily flowchartish. That is just this extreme flowchart. And it's just kind of... I mean, I actually like the ideas in here somewhat. It's just that they were just used so terribly that it just ends up kind of in awful sets just to remind people how not to do bosses. Kyoko is an awkward set in my history because every set below it, I don't really care about the character in question, and here I actually do. So having the set be terrible is just, well, it's not terrible. I think that's also the other thing about Falls. It's kind of a cutoff point for sets in here that I would really just rather forget, whereas here I think there's actually some semi-decent stuff with the chain momentum, making her into sort of a long-range combo-ish character. I don't know, it's just... You can sort of bash them back and forth along the chain. It's basically more advanced Nightman with a bit more lockdown, which I'm not happy about. She just makes this random pit and just traps the opponent down there by bashing them back and forth on the chain, and just... There's also the awkward balance stuff, which I threw in, just give her 2 balancing measures in both the sweet spot and just making her slower moving and have worse attack speed the more range you give the spear, which makes it look like she completely does not know how to use it. And it's just, again, I screwed up the characterization on the set of a character I like, which I am not happy about. And of course there's the impaling move, which ages so very terribly. Just, again, I don't like this set, and this is probably the one on the list I most want to remix. Although she's not that high potential, so it kind of makes that awkward. But I do have to remake this set sometime. This is not a proper set for this character.
One little pet peeve of mine is the DA is supposedly justified because the characters in the series are just kind of generically super strong, even though it's a little girl making a pit. That's fine, but and you just say, she's really struggling to move around with a giant spear that is just as long as Final Destination.
I think it's more due to the fact that the spear is just awkwardly sized, at least, to justify that. It's more just, she has more trouble moving it around just because of how large it is, but, Also, the set spawns a lot of Falcon innuendo, and I hate it for that. So, Warlord. I I can't. This is probably the first set on this list I don't hate, but I don't really like it at all because one very simple reason. It's missing 10 inputs. I mean, I can't really justify that. It just has no aerials and no grab game.
It has a directional aerial.
No, it's not even directional. It's just a body slam. So, yeah, I mean, the actual stuff in the set besides that isn't that bad. He floods the stage. He has defensive moves while he floods the stage for boring setup, admittedly. And then he just floods the stage so that he can, like, reach the surface and body slam opponents or just drag them around underwater with a whirlpool or go under the stage and rest while defending himself with bubbles. It's actually pretty versatile for only having 13 inputs, but it's 13 inputs, and he's taking up most of the stage with absolutely no balancing measure to defend him from this. So I kind of get a feeling that Infinites on Warlord would be happening a lot, although he cannot be grabbed, but that's kind of terrible for other reasons, namely grab-based characters. So it's just... I don't loathe this set, but I don't know what Rule is talking about when he said that it was my best MYM10. So...
I'm still kind of offended by it just because the obvious fruit for this character has always been for me it should be, just because the character is so huge that it takes up the entire stage, it should be like the character is the stage, and maybe it's a boss or something, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think it should just be a stamina set.
Probably. What I was thinking, though, was in my head, I was brainstorming, there's no way a Warlord set would be possible, and then I just got actual ideas for it, and I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to put this out on paper. I never intended it to be serious, and I'm kind of annoyed that some people took it seriously. But, yeah. Not my finest set, still better than, like, 10 other sets. Grim Poppet. It's just... This set was kind of an obvious ripoff of Potato Head in that it's just you remove his limbs and then just use the limbs to... He even has the bowler hat toss. He just tosses the keg from one Poppet hands to another. And then you can just... I mean, he has the kegs of acid to separate them, and the kegs are pretty boring. They're either a grab hitbox when they're empty by dumping out the acid onto the stage, or when they're full, the acid just serves as Metroid lava. And I mean, there's some okay stuff in here, but it feels kind of gimmicky, like him being able to stomp down arms in the middle of the acid so that the arm will just be sticking out of the acid, and as such the opponent can't attack it. And then he can just suicide arms off the stage with the opponent in them. It's nothing... I don't really think... It's basically a sort of gimmicky one-day set where I was trying to pull out a few ideas to use with this fairly generic card. I mean, there's just... It doesn't do a whole lot. It's more versatile than sets below it on the list, and it has better ideas, but the design period definitely shows.
Yeah, this set actually was kind of interesting in concept, but the way it was executed felt really awkward to me. Like how the acid isn't used as a fluid like you'd expect in an MYM set. It just kind of acts as like a hitbox and doesn't take advantage of the unique form at all. And also just the fact that you have something like that combined with the Potato Head stuff seems like you could do something interesting with it, but never really gets off the ground at all. Yeah, but it's not that bad, to be honest. It's just kind of forgettable.
I think the thing with this set is, it's just that. It's forgettable. There's not really much more to say about it. So yeah, Shieldred is the worst hitter, and it shows in her vote totals where she got voted to by absolutely no people at all. And essentially what this set does is she spreads goop, the oil from from Phyrexia in general all over the stage. And if you're standing in the oil, your percent gradually rises until you reach 200%, in which you get corrupted and die. So it's sort of like a pummel KO. And she just covers the stage in this, and she creates spikes which trap the opponent on the floor. Then she can create these levitation spheres, which just lift the goop off the ground so you can have it in the air as well. And then aside from that, she just largely zones and creates she can also disjoint her body so that you can have the mouth, like, distracting them and dragging them around while your body just does more setup, which I thought was actually okay. It's a bit different. I don't think there's any team dynamic character exactly like this, but it's largely just stalling, which I don't really like as a playstyle. And it just... I sort of think that it's a bit ridiculous that the giant maw just has no KO moves when it really should. Although you can suicide KO them with it and then just lose the maw and fight them as solo half-shield red. I mean, again, I think there's actually some decent stuff in here, which there kind of has to be to get this high, but I don't know. I'm not really a big fan. Although I sort of feel that with the all 5 of the Predators, there's a bit of a playground thing going on. I feel this set, while it's not good at it, it at least has that.
To me, the set just felt like it had too many concepts going on at once and didn't really focus on any of them particularly well. But I kind of liked it in a way. It wasn't the set I had any strong feelings for. Although it really should have been a set I really like, considering what's in there.
Yeah, but it just kind of does it poorly.
Yeah, it could have potentially been one of the best ones if it actually focused on either disconnecting your body from your head. That's kind of a flip on the whole potato head concept, or if you focused on the goop and that. But the two of them together don't really flow into one. It felt...
I can't really remake this set though. Like, just having one of the Predators get awkwardly remade is kind of...
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying it could have been better. But I mean, like, all things considered, it's not at all bad, and it's totally forgivable. But it's not.
Gamzee is a set that I actually liked a lot for a long time, and I don't really anymore, just because it doesn't flow that well. The basic thing is you stun the opponent, you steal a KO move from them, and then you use the said KO move on them. And aside from that, he has mass teleporting stuff, so he can camp via... It was done better in Jarvis, but he can just go from puppet to puppet and just toss pins at the opponent. And there's obviously some major balance problems with this, because I forgot to put some arbitrary limits on how much you could teleport and such. So it's a bit broken in its current state, and I would need to throw in like some sort of limit on how much you could teleport or how much you could phase out into the background of the stage. Because the thing Rule really liked about this set was just, you can disappear completely from the stage. And that's okay, but I think that could have been handled a fair bit better. I mean, I do like some of the stuff in here. It's very creative, but it's very bizarre. I think it's fitting to the character, just have him do all this bizarre stuff and sneak around and eventually murder the opponent with a grab game or with their own stolen move, given his nature as a mimic. But I don't think that the set on a whole really has too much going for it. I'll give it that it's better than the other things below it, because it doesn't have any humongous flaws or any real... And it's not quite as forgettable.
I obviously... Well, you know, obviously, but no one... Let me start over. You know I like this set, but I don't really talk about it at all, because it kind of came out at the end of the contest, and then we had the voting period, and no one really commented it, apart from me. But I really like this set because of the characterization. It just feels really, really tightly executed for the character. Creeping up on opponents, using invisibility, creating teleportation pads pretty much with the puppets, the juggling. It just felt very well put together, considering it was also a one-day set, and I don't think it really could have been executed much better for the character, especially at that time in the comic. It was pretty much, everything he possibly could do while still feeling fairly unique. I would also say it's kind of like a step up from Abra, and makes a lot more sense on Gamzee than Abra set was an Abra.
I think this is like the next set on here is the first one I like, but I do think that Gamzee is all right. I can agree with you that the characterization's good, but I'm not exactly fanatical about the flow or the ideas presented, regardless of the fact that Rule thinks that it's just obscenely creative, and it's really not.
That's actually one of the things I like about the set, is that it is fairly in Smash, while still being kind of creative at the same time.
Forward Smash is kind of terrible on an in Smash set, where he just randomly shrinks their shield to minimum size, even if they don't have it out, I think. Hate Forward Smash. So, Hop-Ip was my first set, and it went pretty well for a first attempt, I have to admit, because basically my mindset was, I'm going to make a Pokemon set in 2 hours and post it and see how people react, because I was actually aware of playstyle, and I wanted to show people that I was aware of playstyle. So, within 2 hours, I basically made a set that was about juggling the opponent off the top of the screen and stunning them towards there with Spore Clouds, which really is all I could logically see Hop-Ip doing. But it was just... It doesn't really do much interesting. It nudges them around. You can potentially nudge them under the stage, too, or if you want to, or just move Spore Clouds around it. It's not really very open-ended, but it's functional. It's slightly interesting, and I don't know. I thought I did pretty all right with it. I don't like it when it gets praised over a lot of my other sets. I'm a little bit disturbed that people super voted it. I think that was largely due to the fact that I was completely new at the time.
Well, people super voted Drifblim, didn't they?
Yeah.
This is basically what Drifblim should have been, isn't it?
Sort of. Yeah,
It kind of reminds me of Rattata, in that it's a very simple set that doesn't have any problems. And I think a lot of people appreciate that kind of execution.
Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing for me that the more complex sets I made later in the contest didn't get as much reception. Although Homer outplaced it, and I am very, very happy about that. Still am. Well, no, it's an alright set. I wouldn't exactly call it fantastic, but that's all it needs to be above everything else here. So, yeah.